Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 8 Plus and compare it against the iPhone 7 Plus and see which particular iPhone is a better one for you. Now, I will definitely tell you, in my personal opinion, both these iPhones are very good. I love these phones when they first came out, but I will tell you, in this day and age, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go ahead and buy an iPhone like this. I think it makes a lot more sense to go and buy an iPhone that is still kind of supported with software. These phones are severely outdated with software, like they haven't been around in a very, very long amount of time. And I probably wouldn't recommend buying these particular devices when it comes down to it, just because they are severely outdated. But luckily for you, those other phones that I'll leave link down in the description, you can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Those ones are probably going to be the better ones here. But starting off with the outside of both these phones, the iPhone 7 Plus that came out back in 2016, on the front side of this phone has a 5.5-inch Retina IPS panel. And this type of iPhone, I mean, I liked it when it first came out. You know, it was a good screen, it was a good panel. And this was definitely a phone that I looked at and I was very, very happy about, because in a lot of ways, it still, looks very good. It's not the best panel of all time. You're getting pretty big bezels on the top and bottom. But I do think, like, if you were going to go through and pick up a device, this thing really wasn't that bad of an idea. And I still think, like, it's a very good looking, decent panel. It just so happens that it has just so much bezel around it that can be kind of like an annoying thing for some people. On the iPhone 8 Plus, it's built basically the exact same way. So it is almost the exact same type of device when it comes down to it. So with the iPhone 8 Plus, this one is also giving you a 5.5-inch Retina IPS panel on it. So it's the same size display, so basically everything's kind of the same there. The only big thing to kind of keep in mind within this particular device is the fact that you are getting like the home button on the front, big bezels on the top and bottom. You're also getting basically like 60 Hz panels on both these phones, which I think is good. But once again, that's just one other thing to kind of keep in mind here as well. On the bottom, you're getting lightning ports on both these phones, which again is nice. I love having lightning, and that is essentially what's going on here. Curved sides on both, so they're basically just like curved, phones, which again look very, very nice. On the back side, you're getting glass back on the iPhone 8 Plus, and the iPhone 7 Plus is basically giving you this aluminum back. So this in and of itself is another big thing to keep in mind here, because if you're going to go and pick up a phone, you're going to be getting a device that's essentially, way better built inside of the iPhone 8 Plus. And for a lot of people, if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, you probably want to go ahead and buy a phone like the iPhone 8 Plus because it is significantly better and it just looks better. Both are giving you dual camera setups, which is really, really nice. Beyond that though, that's kind of what you're getting between both. I will tell you though, when it comes down to it, if you're looking at the exterior of both these phones, like in every single way you can probably imagine, the iPhone 8 Plus is going to be one of those devices that's probably going to be a better one in almost every single way. Better IP certification, just better everything across the board, and that genuinely makes a lot more sense for me to recommend to people rather than the iPhone 7 Plus. However, some things that both these phones are missing out on that a lot of phones have nowadays. One, you don't have any USB Type-C ports on either one of these phones, no OLED displays either, and no high refresh rates, so no like 90 or 120 Hz displays. Those can be kind of big disadvantages if you're going to go through and pick up phones, because those are really cool things to have within the device, and you are basically missing out on both those things within this particular phone when it comes down to it. So that in and of itself, once again, is another very, very big thing to keep in mind here. Price tag wise, both these phones, basically the iPhone 8 Plus is the more expensive phone than the iPhone 7 Plus, but even then, it's not like the biggest difference in the world, and it's not like you're going to be noticing these massive differences when it comes down to it from that side either. So that right there is another big thing to kind of keep in mind there as well. Now on top of that, when it comes down to the camera side, both are going to be giving you dual camera setups, which again is very important. It's a very, very important thing to have when you're getting these types of devices. But the big thing to keep in mind here is that both these phones really aren't like the best phones of all time. They're going to be a little like weird here and there. I think that's kind of the best way to describe it. Mostly because you're missing out on an ultra-wide camera. So you're not getting an ultra-wide camera in either one of these phones, which is kind of a big thing to keep in mind. You're getting 4K at 60 on the back of the iPhone 8 Plus, but you're not even getting 1080p at 60 on the front of either one of these phones, which is kind of a disadvantage. And I definitely will say from that perspective, it is much better to be able to go and buy a phone that's going to be giving you a better experience rather than these particular devices. So I do think from that side, that in and of itself is another very, very big thing to kind of keep in mind there. I will say if you're going to use these phones on an everyday basis, it's probably going to be okay. Like you're probably not going to notice like too many big massive differences. You're probably going to feel like you're still getting a very good phone on both. But I will tell you in almost every single way I can imagine, both of these phones are still going to be okay, but they're not going to be great cameras. And that's kind of the problem. Like I would hate for you to go and buy this type of phone if you're expecting it to be great or expecting it to be like a good device at the end of the day, and it's going to be okay, but it's not going to be that great. And once again, that's kind of the problem that you're running into when you're getting this type of device. So once again, that right there is kind of the big thing to kind of keep in mind here when it kind of comes down to it. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to the software longevity, these types of devices, once again, are fairly interesting when it kind of comes down to it. So from the software perspective, the one big thing to kind of keep in mind here is that if you're going to go through and pick up a device, when it kind of comes down to it, the software is pretty much done on both of these. So the problem that I kind of have is what I'd say is what's the point of going through and buying either one of these phones if the software is already basically done, right? You don't want to go and just buy a phone and have it already be done with software. And I'm pretty sure that's how everyone is. I think for a majority of people, the best thing you'd want to do is to go and buy a phone that still has a future ahead of it. Neither one of these phones are basically giving you any future ahead. And once again, that's kind of the issue that you're running into here. So I think from that side in and of itself is one big thing to kind of keep in mind here. So keep that in mind. If you're going to go and buy a phone, I would imagine you'd want to buy a phone that still has some software ahead of it. And like I said before, neither one of these devices are going to be giving you that. So that right there, once again, kind of covers it up there as well. From the performance side, both are actually more similar probably than not, if I kind of have to come down to it. With both these phones, with the iPhone 7 Plus, you're getting the Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it. The only Fusion chip Apple made, which is kind of interesting. Whereas on the iPhone 8 Plus, Apple made that, Apple A11 Bionic chip, which was inside the iPhone 10 as well. And that chipset is inside this particular device. Now, when it comes down to it, I will tell you, if you're going to go and use a phone on an everyday basis, you are probably going to notice that on a device like an iPhone 8 Plus, that device is probably going to be the faster one, almost every single time. That's what happens when you're going to go through and pick up a device. And, when it comes down to these things, that's kind of what ends up, happening here for the most part. And I actually like that a lot. I like being able to go ahead and, get a device and have it, of this caliber. And I do think from that side in and of itself, it's a very nice thing. It's not a perfect phone, either one of these things, but from a performance side, I definitely don't think it's terrible either. If you're going to go through and pick up a phone, I definitely do think it's a good, device. It's a good, performing device for the most part, but it's not perfect. And like I said, that's just the big thing to kind of keep in mind here. Neither one of these phones, have the gesture-based design, which really makes the phone feel and perform much better. But I will probably tell you on an everyday basis, you can't go wrong with using these phones at a basic level. But if you're trying to go through and do a lot of crazy stuff, neither one of these phones are really going to be giving you insane experiences. So overall, what I'll definitely tell you is when it comes down to both these devices, the iPhone 8 Plus is the slightly better phone than the iPhone 7 Plus. The 8 Plus, still is giving you some good stuff inside of it. It's going to be giving you good capability, good power, good, stuff, but it's just not going to be that great. And like I've always stated, I would really hate for you to go and buy these types of phones if you're already going to be outdated with software. And that's kind of what's happening if you're going to be buying either one of these phones. You're going to be done. That's doesn't really make a lot of sense to go and buy it. And that's just kind of what ends up happening when you're buying a device like this. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.